Most people have heard the same advice for years. Sleep 8 hours every night. It is repeated in health articles, school lessons, and conversations about productivity. But is 8 hours truly the perfect amount of sleep for everyone? Or is the number more complicated than that? Sleep researchers have spent decades studying this question, and what they have discovered is surprisingly complex. Some people feel perfectly alert after 7 hours of sleep. Others still feel tired after 8 hours and seem to function best with 9. And a very small number of people can maintain normal cognitive performance with even less. So if everyone is different, how can scientists determine what the brain actually needs? To understand the answer, we need to look at what sleep really does inside the brain. Sleep is not just rest. It is a structured biological process designed to restore neural systems that are constantly active during waking hours throughout the day. The brain processes enormous amounts of information. It interprets sensory signals, makes decisions, forms memories, and regulates emotions. Each of these processes consumes energy and creates microscopic strain inside neural networks. Sleep is the moment when the brain repairs this strain. During deep sleep, neurons reduce their activity and begin restoring energy reserves. The brain also activates the lymphatic system, which clears metabolic waste from brain tissue. This cleaning process helps maintain healthy neural communication. During REM sleep, the brain performs another critical function. It reorganizes memories from the day. Experiences are replayed and integrated into long-term storage networks. Emotional signals are processed, and connections between ideas are strengthened together. These processes prepare the brain for the next day. The question is not simply how long someone sleeps. It is whether the brain has enough time to complete all of these cycles. A full sleep cycle lasts roughly 90 minutes. Over the course of a night, the brain typically completes 4 to 6 cycles. Depending on sleep duration, each cycle contributes something different to brain recovery. The first cycles contain the largest amount of deep sleep, which supports physical restoration and neural maintenance. Later cycles contain longer REM periods, which support emotional processing and cognitive integration. When sleep duration becomes too short, the brain may complete only 3 or 4 cycles. This means some recovery processes remain unfinished. But when sleep reaches 7, 8, or 9 hours, the brain usually has enough time to complete most of its cycles. Large population studies provide additional clues. Researchers have analyzed sleep patterns in hundreds of thousands of people across different countries. When they compare sleep duration with health outcomes, a consistent pattern appears. People who sleep between 7 and 9 hours tend to show the lowest risk of cognitive decline, cardiovascular disease, and mood disorders. Sleep shorter than 6 hours is associated with increased health risks over long periods. But sleeping significantly longer than 9 or 10 hours can sometimes indicate other health problems. This pattern forms what researchers often describe as a U-shaped curve. Both very short sleep and very long sleep are linked with negative outcomes, while the healthiest range appears somewhere in the middle. For most adults, that middle range is approximately 7 to 9 hours. However, individual sleep needs still vary. Genetics plays a role in how quickly the brain accumulates sleep pressure and how efficiently it recovers during sleep. Some people naturally require slightly less sleep, while others require more. Age also influences sleep requirements. Children and teenagers require significantly more sleep because their brains are still developing. As people grow older, sleep patterns often change. Sleep may become lighter and more fragmented, although the total need for sleep does not disappear. Another important factor is sleep quality. Someone may spend 8 hours in bed but experience frequent awakenings that disrupt sleep cycles. In this case, the brain may not complete the same restorative processes as someone who sleeps deeply for a slightly shorter period. Is why sleep researchers often emphasize both duration and quality. Brain does not simply measure how long someone remains in bed. It measures whether its internal recovery systems have completed their work. When sleep duration falls within the optimal range and sleep quality remains stable, the brain wakes up with restored neural balance, attention becomes sharper, emotional responses remain stable, learning and memory formation improve. And mental energy becomes more consistent throughout the day. But when sleep falls outside that range for long periods, subtle changes begin appearing in cognitive performance. The brain can adapt to reduce sleep for short periods, but over time, the difference between partial recovery and full recovery becomes more noticeable. So how much sleep do humans really need? For most adults, the scientific evidence suggests that the optimal range lies somewhere between 7 and 9 hours per night. This range allows the brain to complete the majority of its sleep cycles and perform the biological maintenance required for healthy cognitive function. The exact number may vary slightly from person to person, but the principle remains the same. Sleep is not simply time spent unconscious. It is the period when the brain restores itself, and the amount of time required for that restoration determines how clearly the brain can think, learn, and respond to the world the following day. Another important aspect of determining the ideal amount of sleep involves how the brain balances recovery with daily demands. Throughout waking hours, the brain constantly adjusts to new information and environmental stimuli. It processes conversations, analyzes visual signals, interprets emotions, and makes thousands of small decisions. Each of these activities strengthens certain neural connections while weakening others. Over time, this constant activity creates what neuroscientists call synaptic load. In simple terms, the brain accumulates an enormous number of active neural connections during the day. Sleep helps rebalance this system. During deep sleep, the brain performs a process sometimes referred to as synaptic downs. This process selectively weakens less important neural connections while preserving the strongest ones. By reducing unnecessary neural activity, the brain maintains efficiency and prevents cognitive overload. When sleep duration is too short, the brain may not complete this process fully. As a result, neural networks can remain slightly overactive. This can contribute to the feeling of mental fog that some people experience after several nights of limited sleep. With sufficient sleep duration, the brain has enough time to restore balance between active and inactive neural pathways. Another important factor influencing optimal sleep duration is circadian rhythm alignment. The circadian rhythm is the internal biological clock that regulates sleep timing, body temperature, hormone release, and alertness across a roughly 24-hour cycle. This rhythm is strongly influenced by exposure to light. Morning light signals the brain to increase alertness, while darkness in the evening triggers the release of melatonin, the hormone that prepares the body for sleep. When sleep timing aligns with the circadian rhythm, sleep cycles become more stable and restorative. However, when sleep occurs at irregular times or in conflict with natural light patterns, the brain may struggle to enter deeper sleep stages efficiently. In these cases, someone may technically sleep for 8 hours but still wake up feeling tired. This demonstrates that optimal sleep duration depends not only on the number of hours but also on how well those hours align with the body's internal clock. Lifestyle also plays a role in determining individual sleep needs. Physical activity, mental workload, and emotional stress all influence how much recovery the brain requires. For example, intense learning periods or physically demanding days can increase the brain's need for deeper sleep. Athletes and students often notice that after particularly demanding days, their sleep becomes deeper and sometimes longer. The brain is responding to increased recovery demands. Another interesting finding from sleep research involves long-term brain health. Studies following large populations over many years show that consistent sleep patterns within the set range are associated with healthier cognitive aging. Individuals who regularly sleep within this range tend to maintain stronger memory performance and more stable attention later in life. This does not mean sleep alone determines brain health, but it appears to play a significant supporting role. Sleep provides the time necessary for neural maintenance and long-term structural stability. Without enough sleep, these maintenance processes become less efficient. Finally, it is important to remember that sleep is a dynamic biological process rather than a fixed number. The amount of sleep someone needs may change across different stages of life and under different circumstances. Periods of illness, emotional stress, or intense learning may temporarily increase the brain's need for recovery. At other times, sleep needs may feel slightly lower. What matters most is whether the brain consistently receives enough time to complete its essential cycles of restoration. When sleep duration remains within the healthy range and occurs regularly, the brain maintains a stable rhythm of recovery. Memory systems remain efficient, emotional responses remain balanced, and mental energy remains consistent throughout the day. In the end, the perfect amount of sleep is not defined by a single universal number. Asterisk.